Good morning, students. I hope all of you are doing well. In today's video, we will do revision from chapter 1, Mr. Nobody. This video is part 2. In part 1, we have done summary of Mr. Nobody. Today, we will do question answers and some important points from this poem. Now, let's begin with our class.
I know a funny little man, as quiet as a mouse, who does the mischief that is done in everybody's house. There's no one ever sees his face, and yet we all agree that every plate we break was cracked by Mr. Nobody. 'Tis he who always tears our books, who leaves the door ajar. He pulls the buttons from our shirts and scatters pins afar. That squeaking door will always squeak, for prithee, don't you see, we leave the oiling to be done by Mr. Nobody. The finger marks upon the door by none of us are made. We never leave the blind unclosed to let the curtains fade. The ink we never spill. The boots that lying round you see are not our boots, they all belong to Mr. Nobody.
Now students, here are important points in the poem Mr. Nobody. So these points you have to learn. The first point is the poem talks about a little man who no one has seen. Means the poem is talking about Mr. Nobody, that no one has seen Mr. Nobody. Second point, the little man is very quiet and does all the mischiefs in everyone's house. So little man is very quiet like a mouse, and he does all the mischiefs that is done in everyone's house. That all the mischiefs that is done in Mr. Nobody's house, the same mischiefs in our house also we used to do. Third point, the things which are done by Mr. Nobody are: he crack plates, tear our books, pulls buttons from our shirts, he puts tap foot upon the fire, bring muddy feet in the house. The things which are not done by anyone in the house are: door open partially, oiling of the door, papers are misplaced, the finger marks upon the door, and the boots always lying in the floor. So in third point, there are few things which Mr. Nobody is done, and everyone agrees that who has done this? Mr. Nobody. But in point number 4, the things which are not done, means there are few things which are not done in the house, but we attributed that Mr. Nobody should do this work. Now students, here are difficult words with their meaning. You have to learn all the difficult words with their meaning. First word is ajar, which means open partially. Second, squeak means noise. Third, scatters means different direction kept. Prithi, please. Damp means slightly wet. Mislaid means misplaced. Blinks means a window shade that can be rolled up and down. Now students, here are question answers. Question number 1, he puts tap wood upon the fire that kettles cannot boil. Tap wood means the wood that are slightly wet. So who put the tap wood upon the fire? Mr. Nobody. किसने गीली लकड़ी आग में डाली? Mr. Nobody ने. What is the meaning of tap wood? Tap wood means slightly wet wood. See, how does tap wood prevents the kettles from boiling? The tap wood was slightly wet, so it prevented the kettle from boiling. क्योंकि जो wood था वो slightly wet था, so वो easily catch नहीं किया fire, so boiling में problem हो रहा था, kettle boil नहीं हो रही थी. Second question, we never leave the blinds unclosed to let the curtains fade. Who does we refer to here? We refers to Mr. Nobody here. Who would leave the blinds open? Mr. Nobody would leave the blinds open. See what happened because the blinds were left open. because the blinds were left open, the curtains gets fade. B. Answer these questions. What does everyone agree upon? Answer. Everyone agrees upon that every plate they break was cracked by Mr. Nobody. Means कोई भी प्लेट जो टूटती थी घर में, हम किसे ब्लेम करते थे? मिस्टर नोबडी को, कि मिस्टर नोबडी ने ही तोड़ा है. क्वेश्चन नंबर 2. व्हाट डज मिस्टर नोबडी डू टू द बुक्स? मिस्टर नोबडी ने बुक के साथ क्या किया? मिस्टर नोबडी यूज्ड टू टीयर द बुक्स. उसने बुक को टीयर कर दिया, फाड़ दिया. क्वेश्चन नंबर 3. Why will the squeaking door always squeak? The squeaking door will always squeak because Mr. Nobody has not done the oiling which is left to Mr. Nobody. Means जो डोर था वो स्क्वीक क्यों करता था? क्योंकि उसकी ऑयलिंग नहीं की गई थी. क्वेश्चन नंबर 4. What does the kettle not? Why does the kettle not boil? The kettle does not boil because Mr. Nobody puts the damp wood on the fire, because he used the damp wood in the fire, so the kettle does not boil. Question number 5. What happened when Mr. Nobody bring his muddy feet? Mr. Nobody bring his muddy feet inside the house and makes the carpet spoil. Muddy feet से उसने carpet को spoil कर दिया जो घर में था. Question number 6. What are the things that never done in the house? Means what are the things जो घर में कभी नहीं की गई? The things which are not done by anyone in the house are door open partially, oiling of the door, papers are misplaced, the finger marks upon the door, and the boots always lying in the floor. Question number 7. Pick out all the words from the poem that rhyme with Mr. Nobody. The word which rhyme with Mr. Nobody is everybody. In your opinion, is Mr. Nobody a real person? If yes, then who is he? If no, then what is he it? So the answer is no, Mr. Nobody does not actually exist. The poem conveys the mischievous things that are done by nobody in the house. So in this story, in this poem, Mr. Nobody कोई एक रियल पर्सन नहीं है, कि वो कोई इंसान नहीं है. ओके, बस हम ये जब हम कोई गलतियाँ करते हैं अपने घर में, देन हम सबसे क्या कहते हैं कि नोबडी. मीन्स मैंने ये गलती नहीं की है, नो वन हैज़ डन. सो आप बस बता रहे हो क्यों कि जो गलतियाँ घर में की जा रही हैं वो नोबडी कर रहा है, बट वो नोबडी एक्चुअल में कोई नहीं है, वो हम ही लोग हैं जो घर में गलतियाँ करते हैं. Question number 9. What aspects of daily life is the poet describing in this poem? In the poem, the poet is describing aspects of daily life as he observes that the responsibility of the household which are not performed well are attributed to Mr. Nobody, which is in reality is to be done by the family members. Now students, hope you have understood the poem and question answers also. Now your homework for today is to read the poem once again, learn all the difficult words which are given in the poem, and learn all the question answers. This is your homework for today, and don't forget to write your name, class with section for your attendance. Thank you class.